I've been a long time user of Versa Cash, and they recently launched this new thing called quets, which apparently lets you earn 6% or something like that on their money market funds, which is insane. But today's video is not really about that. You guys can go read up on it on yourselves. It's quite straightforward. One of the quests is to set up an auto debit into Versa Invest, and a lot of you guys are asking me, is it worth it? Is it worth investing into Versa Invest to get that extra 1% on their money market funds? So I went through all of them, and in today's video, I'll be sharing what I think about it so you guys can decide for yourselves. Let's get to it. First, let's talk about the different funds that Versa has to offer. There is a long list, so let me just read this. There are 9 different ones. So there is Versa Growth and Growth I. So all the funds with an I basically means it's Sharia compliant. Then there is Versa Japan, there's Versa Global I, Versa Sing Dollar, Versa Gold, Versa Moderate and Moderate I, and there's also Versa REITs. So you guys can see there's way too many funds here today for me to cover. So today I'll only be going through 3 specific funds, which is Versa Growth, Versa Growth I, and Versa Global I. You guys know that I am an aggressive investor, which is why I chose these funds. If you guys wanted to invest into the moderate funds, then sorry, because I won't be covering it in this video. Anyway, let's get to the first fund, which is Versa Growth. Right now, this is the only one that I'm currently investing in. When I say investing, I only have 200 ringgit there, I guess not a lot, but I just put it in mainly to test it out for you guys. So reading on their website, it says this fund aims to provide investors with capital growth over a medium to long-term period. Basically, this is just a growth fund, as its name implies. So this fund is considered high risk, it has a high risk rating, and it's also not Sharia compliant. Looking at the 2024 returns, it doesn't look so good. It's only up 2.4% right now, which is not great because a lot of stock markets are up by more than that. But you guys know that we don't invest just purely based on this, so let's have a look at their fund fact sheet. Unfortunately, this fund only launched in 2022, so we don't have a lot of historical performance that we can look at. But last year, the returns was 17.5%, and since its inception in 2022, this fund is up by 20%, and I guess those are pretty good numbers. We can also see that this fund is currently outperforming their benchmark, which is always a good sign for the fund managers, but I noticed that for some reason, the benchmark is Maybank's fixed deposit rate plus 5%. I don't know if this is normal in the industry, but this is the first time that I've ever seen a fund use a benchmark like this. Because if you use a fixed deposit rate plus 5%, it essentially means that every single year you have to be positive, which is not really possible when you invest in stocks. But that's what they chose, so let's just go with it. Now, let's look at the holdings. What is Versa Growth invested in? On first glance, I can see that this is a fund of funds. So sounds really complex, right? What does it mean? Basically, it means that this portfolio, it doesn't invest into stocks directly. Instead, it invests into other funds like ETFs. Honestly, I am not a huge fan of this business model, this fund of funds thing, because it does charges a lot of fees, but I'll cover that later on. They've chosen a lot of different funds for them to invest in, but their core is the S&P 500 with the largest allocation, and I guess that's never really a bad choice. There's quite a lot of exposure to the US stock market, but they also have some other funds and ETFs that cover stocks from different countries. For example, the AHAM Select Opportunity Fund covers mainly Malaysian stocks, and there's also this fund called the Lazard, I think that's how you pronounce it, the Lazard Global Active Funds, that covers Japanese equities. Their only other interesting fund is their 5% allocation towards this biotech fund. I think that's a bit odd because this is a niche sector, right? Biotech is a really niche sector when all the other funds are very general, investing in the S&P 500 and stuff like that. So yeah, this is a bit of an odd choice. I don't know why they're so bullish on biotech, but I guess it's pretty cool to have it there. Because of the amount of funds that they have invested in, and then these funds invest into stocks, it's a bit hard for us to know where our money is invested in geographically. I think that's the word, right? But yeah, anyway, according to Versa, 54% of the allocation is towards US stocks, whereas the remaining is all in international stocks. So personally, I think this fund is okay. It looks quite decent actually for a personal portfolio. It's very diversified. In fact, it's the most diversified option out of the 3 that I'll be talking about today. But this diversification, it does come at a cost. Like I said, because it's a fund of funds, there will be a lot of fees involved. So real quick, if you guys didn't know, to my knowledge at least, all funds by Versa Invest is managed by AHAM Capital, which is Affin Hwang Asset Management, which is completely fine. But first of all, when we invest into Versa Growth, there is the management fee set by AHAM, and that's already at 1.5%, which is honestly quite high. But then, every single fund that Aham decides to invest in will have a fee of its own. So let's say we invest into the S&P 500 ETF, there's a fee of around 0.1%, let's say. And then all the other funds, there are also fees for those. Some of them can go to 0.8%, even 1%. So yeah, you can see that all these fees really start to stack up. But I always say this, I don't mind paying high fees. The only thing that matters to me is the return after fees. But the thing is, because the costs are so high, the stocks that these guys choose really have to outperform the market to still give us a good return. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this just to make sure that the returns are still acceptable compared to the risk that we're taking on. By the way, if any of you guys want to invest into Versa, they have a money market fund and also all these investing options I'm talking about today, then you can use my code. I'll leave it on the screen right here. And once you deposit and invest, we will both get 10 ringgit. Also, if you're enjoying this video so far, then give me a big thumbs up. Hit the like button. Moving on to the next fund, which is Versa Growth I. So this one is quite similar to the previous one, but it has two major differences. One is it's Sharia compliant, and two is it mainly, or I think only, invests into Malaysian stocks. If you guys watch my recent videos, you guys know that I'm getting really excited about Malaysia's economy as well as the stock market. So let's have a look at what this fund has to offer. So this fund started in 2002, I think, which means that we have a lot more historical performance to look at. And this year alone, it's already up 6.5%. Let's go, Malaysian stocks for the win. Anyway, last year it returned 5%, and in 2022 it was down 15%, which seems a bit scary, but to be fair, 2022 was just a bad year for stock markets. But what's really impressive to me is that since this fund started in 2002, it has returned 697%. And when we analyze that, that goes to about 10% a year, which is really good. Anyone would take 10% a year, right? And this figure should also include their income distributions, which is kind of like dividends. Based on my checking over the last few years, the average is around 1.5 to 2% a year. And when we look at the holdings, unlike the Versa Growth Fund, this one invests directly into stocks rather than other funds. Some of its top holdings include names like Tenaga Nasional, Solarvest, as well as SP Setia. So I think if you're someone who wants to invest into the Malaysian stock market, if you want some exposure to Malaysian stocks, but you just want it to be a fund so it's easy to manage, then this is a pretty good option. Right now, I'm not invested into this. Most, or actually all of my Malaysian investments is in this ETF that I really like. I made a video about it recently. You guys can check it out here. But now I'm thinking, having a look at this, maybe I will put some money here. The fee for this fund is set at 1.5%, which I guess is the norm. It is still considered quite high, but like I said, if you can give me 10% a year after fees, then I don't really mind. Moving on to the final fund that I'll be covering in today's video, which is Versa Global I. This one is also Sharia compliant, so the main difference between this one and Versa Growth I is that, as its name implies, this one invests into global stocks instead of just Malaysian companies. But with Bursa Malaysia performing so well in 2024, do we even need to invest into other countries? Well, yes, actually we do. It's good to have some diversification. Anyway, let's get through the fun fact sheet to see what it's doing. When looking at the performance, it's a bit complex because this fund has a few different options. It has actually a lot of different options. So there's one in USD, there's a Malaysian ringgit hedge, there's a Sing dollar hedge, there's an Australian dollar hedge. So I'm not exactly sure which one we're getting when we invest via Versa Invest. But looking at the unit price, I'm going to assume that we are on the Malaysian ringgit hedged version. Let's just all assume that I'm correct. So far this year, this fund is up by 10.3%, and last year it was also up by 24%, which are obviously really good numbers. In 2022 though, it didn't look as good because it was down 27%, but like I said, we have to be fair, 2022 was just a bad year for stocks. I remember this clearly because my portfolio was on fire every single day. This fund also invests into stocks directly, and since it's Sharia compliant, it will only choose Sharia compliant stocks, but you will see the usual big names like Microsoft, Nvidia, and Taiwan Semiconductor. They call this a global fund, but the allocation to the US is 73%, and the next highest is Japan at only 4%. Doesn't seem very global, does it? It seems like it's just a US fund. But to be fair to them, that's just how all global funds are these days. Every single fund manager just wants to invest in the US because that's what everyone else is doing, and the US has been performing so well. So if they don't invest in the US and their returns are not as good, then people will start to complain. I like this fund too. I think it's pretty good, but I would say it's nothing special. You can get similar exposure by investing into ETFs like VT. It will give you pretty much the same thing. It's extremely popular and it will be cheaper. But I guess there are 3 benefits to doing it via Versa Invest. First of all, obviously, this fund is Sharia compliant. So if that's what you're looking for, then you need to go through this. Number 2, investing via Versa Invest is just a lot more convenient compared to buying an ETF yourself. That one needs a bit more knowledge, I guess. And then the third one is that this fund is Malaysian ringgit hedged, if assuming I'm correct. But yeah, we will appreciate the Malaysian ringgit hedge in years like this, where the Malaysian ringgit is very strong. Because if we're invested into USD instead, then we will be losing out just purely from currency because the US dollar is starting to weaken. But the price that you will pay for these three things is their management fee, which is 1.8% compared to VT, I think it's something like 0.1 to 0.2%. So yeah, you guys can see that this fund, the management fee is a lot higher. So it's completely up to you to decide if it's worth it. Overall, I think Versa Invest has some really good funds on offer. Just looking at the Versa SGD, the REITs one, those look interesting as well. And I think I will start to auto debit that 200 ringgit per month just so I can unlock that 1% on Versa Cash as well. I mean, Versa Invest, the options are not that bad. But let me know, what do you guys think and which one is your favorite fund from Versa Invest? Like I said, if you guys haven't signed up for Versa yet and you want to, then you can use my code so we both get 10 ringgit. I'll leave my code down in the YouTube comment as well. Thanks for watching this video to the end, guys. If you enjoyed it, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.